Hey look, we're finally doing a Sonic game that's not a remaster or a collection of older games. Now this time, we're taking a look at the next 2D mainline Sonic game, Sonic Superstars. And of course within the Sonic fanbase, there's already people complaining about the game. All because our favorite classic version of our blue blur is the main focus here rather than modern Sonic. And hey, I'll be at least clear here, I would have preferred modern Sonic over classic Sonic because that's the design I grew up with. But at the end of the day, if the game's good, then there's really no reason to complain. Who cares which Sonic they use? And I know some people say, oh, we can't use Shadow the Hedgehog or anything like that. I really don't care. But what I was more concerned about over classic Sonic was who was developing this game and... Wait a minute. What the hell is that smell? Hang on everyone, I gotta figure out what the hell is this smell. Oh. That's just disgusting. Yep, Sonic Superstars is developed by the king of mediocrity, Arzest. I don't think I need to introduce you guys to all the games they worked in the past, including this particular game right here where the main director ended up being a felon because he did some insider trading. And I would assume the only reason why Sega brought on Arzest is because Naoto Oshima is the head of this company, and seeing how he's the original designer of classic Sonic and the other guy is in jail, might as well bring on the second best choice. So I guess we have to answer the following questions. Is this a true follow-up to the fantastic Sonic Mania, or is it still more mediocrity from Arzest? Well, let's find out. Let's first start with the story. Eggman does bad things, this time with Fang, and some person named Trip. I don't even know who this person is. So Sonic and Co must put a stop to him, and that's legit the story. And while there are some few background things in terms of lore that the game introduces, it is barely much, and I quite honestly forgot there was a story midway through the game. I was just playing through the game. That's how non-existent the story is. But even then, I'll be fair, I don't really play a classic Sonic game for a very in-depth story that tells me this crazy thing that's going on. Now, I really am just here for the game, and we'll talk more about the game later. And if there is a cohesive story like Sonic 3, Sonic Mania, Sonic CD, then I would consider that more an added bonus. But anyways, regardless of a flimsy story, I can say at the very least the presentation is relatively well done, most of the time. I think the transition from pixel art to 3D models was done very well here. Naoto Oshima's art design is probably a reason why there was a good transition. Though aside from that, the environments look okay at the very least. I think it's mostly just because most of these environments that you see in each of these levels are mostly taken from past Sonic games, even though these are their own original level designs. They still take influence from previous designs like Green Hill Zone or your chemical plants. And it kind of just feels kind of dull and boring when it comes down to it. They don't really push the idea further rather than, yeah, it's a kind of a different level, but at the same time we're still taking an idea from a previous area is kind of how I feel about the environments. At the very least though, I can say when it does look good, it does look good. And also an added bonus is animated cutscenes, which look relatively good. Though it's pretty evident that it's not animated by Powerhouse Animation, as they did not take part in animating the cutscenes at all, but rather they're animated by Telecom Animation Film, the same studio that's worked on animes like Lupin III, and for Sonic fans, Sonic X. So it's kind of nice to see that former Sonic animation studios are coming back to animate stuff for the Blue Blur. Now moving on, we have the music, and I'm sorry to say this is indeed a mixed bag. And your music experience will go like this. Oh hell yes, let's go, this is getting me pumped. What is this right here? Let's get bopping, my man. This is an absolute bop. Oh hell yeah, let's keep on going. Let's keep on going with these top tier music here. What the hell? Who turned on the Sonic 4 music? Oh my god, there's more of this. Oh my god, please stop. Please stop. Oh man, no more. No more of this crap. And that's your music experience, because half of it is Sonic Mania inspired music and the other half is crappy Sonic 4 sound font. I really don't get why Jun believes that he needs to restrict classic Sonic to that Yamaha keyboard. I really don't. Because again, it clearly shows you can move away from that Yamaha keyboard and do more inspirational things with the Sonic music. Now let's talk about the game proper, as I'm happy to report the physics and controls of the game is basically one-to-one with the physics of Sonic Mania. It's clear that Sonic Team and Arzest understood if they were going to make a classic style game, then they need to make sure the physics are just right, which they are. But what are great physics if you don't have fun characters to play as or fun levels to go through? And let's start with the characters first. At the start of the game, you have access to 4 playable characters being, of course, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles basically play how they did in Sonic Mania with the same abilities. Sonic still has the drop dash, Tails can fly, Knuckles can glide and climb. To which, no complaints there, while Amy takes some things from Sonic Origins and improves on some few things I had complaints about with her in that release. As Amy can now double jump, which was something I felt was missing. She still has her hammer spin, though you can't do it on the single jump, you have to do it after you perform the double jump. And she still has her not drop dash, which isn't as useful still. But regardless, just because of the fact that she has the double jump, she feels to be on the same playing field as Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, which I do appreciate. And as for level design, I think Arceus has understood what makes a Sonic level good, which is momentum-based platforming. And I think when a level does just that, is indeed a pretty solid level. I wouldn't say it's extraordinary, but I think it does a solid job of recreating the idea of momentum-based platforming. Though of course, seeing how this is Arceus' first Sonic game, they decided to take the liberty of making more experimental levels here and there, particularly in their second acts. For example, in Pinball Carnival Zone 2, you're essentially riding on these rides here a la Donkey Kong Country and essentially timing your jumps of moving to one platform to another. Or in Press Factory Zone 2, you're essentially trying to make sure you're pressing on these switches here to make sure nothing self-destructs. And sometimes things work and sometimes these gimmicks don't really work that well. Quite honestly, I'm not a fan of the constant pressing the switch here and there. It does bring in some tension here and there, but I don't really think it's that interesting overall. And in Frozen Base Zone Act 2, there's a Fantasy Zone callback, which is pretty cool for people who grew up with Sega games, but it drags on even more than the Puyo Puyo callback in Sonic Mania. At least there, it was a nice little callback, but at the same time, you're not spending 1 to 3 minutes on that callback. While here, you're spending about 4 to 5 minutes, and it kind of drags on a bit. And on top of that, the level designs definitely feel more point A to point B focused rather than explorational design, which I don't mind all too much because a majority of Sonic games that have more of a point A to point B design are still just as good as the ones with more explorational design. And for the most part, they do a good job of doing the point A to point B design. The only time we're really exploring in these levels are for special stage rings, which they do make a comeback here, and the special stages are the most easiest special stages I played in my life. As you're basically just Tarzaning your way to a Chaos Emerald, and sometimes the Chaos Emerald will move around, and as long as you know you're trying to reach to where the Chaos Emerald is rather than chasing the Chaos Emerald, you're basically going to clear these special stages no problem. Hell, I beat all the special stages in my first try. And I guess Arceus realized the special stages are way too easy in Sonic Superstars, so they made a change to where you can only get one special stage Chaos Emerald per zone. And I do mean that, because anytime you go to another special stage ring location, rather than a golden special stage ring, it's a blue ring that lets you do the special stage but for these tokens here. And yes, these tokens are the replacement for lives in Sonic Superstars, which we'll talk a little bit more later on in the video. But getting back to the special stages and the Chaos Emeralds, once you obtain the Chaos Emeralds, you of course get Super Sonic when you get all 7 of them, but of course they added in brand new abilities for Chaos Emeralds. Depending on which Chaos Emerald you attain, you gain this brand new special ability like a Screen Nuke attack, the Burst Swift, climbing up waters, riding up a vine, or slowing down time. And quite honestly, I have to say some of them are more useful than others, and others are very situational. For example, I thought the Burst Swift was the most useful in my opinion. It gave me a chance to move up to a higher platform. I like the Screen Nuke attack because it was helpful for me during boss fights, but things like revealing platforms was not very useful, and while the water one seems nice in concept of climbing up waterfalls and being able to swim better underwater, there's not that many water levels to begin with, so it definitely puts it in the situational camp. So once again, it definitely seems like an experiment here, and some things stick and some of them don't. But hey, I do appreciate they're trying to make the Chaos Emeralds more than just Supersonic MacGuffins. And now let's finally talk about the bosses, as typically bosses in Sonic games tend to be short and sweet affairs, or sometimes a long drawn out fight which still gets you on your toes. Though in the case of Sonic Superstars, Arceus definitely went with the latter route regarding boss fights, as many of them are definitely long and drawn out boss fights. And some of them are fine, while others just take forever, like the Fang boss fight in Golden Capital Act 2. I mean, Jesus Christ, this takes just as long as the zone itself. And the thing that hurts is when Fang is open and vulnerable, you can only do one hit, you can't do multiple hits. So it definitely drags out the boss fight even longer, and it's definitely the case for multiple other boss fights as well, though it's definitely very evident here with Fang. And quite honestly, most of these boss fights are something I wouldn't want to go back and fight again, because I found most of them to be boring, quite honestly. So yeah, pretty dull. And before we talk about the end portion of the game, I want to talk about the multiplayer aspects of Sonic Superstars, as there's 4-player co-op and a battle mode. And quite honestly, I didn't spend too much time on these, so I'm just going to talk about this pretty quick. So yeah, there's 4-player co-op in a mainline Sonic game for the first time, and I didn't really play it because I don't have anyone to play it with me. But thankfully, a wonderful subscriber of mine has given me footage of the 4-player co-op, and yeesh, there's definitely needs to be some polish here. I mean, why the hell is Sonic just floating there after that little water ride? And I guess you can die after beating a zone, and oh my god, what the hell is wrong with you, Amy? Please just be fine. So yeah, there's my RSS polish. And on the other hand, we have our battle mode, which basically you create your own little metal atrocity and have it go up against some other people. And unfortunately, I can't say too much about the online because not that many people are playing it online. So off to the offline, and it plays okay. It's kind of cool to see you can customize your own little metal atrocity, and with the tokens you get in the main game, you can customize this guy to your liking. And it's quite unfortunate that they tied it to this mode here that barely anyone's playing anymore. But moving on, we have the end game, and if you don't want to be spoiled, skip to this portion of this video here. So after beating the main story, to which you go up against Eggman in this long drawn out fight in this little egg robo, and I did get killed by him a couple of times, but I chalked that more to me being tired rather than the boss being hard. You gain access to another story called Trip's Story and unlock Trip as a playable character. I failed to mention this, but Trip is this new character in the game. Barely it shows off in the main story, and you basically get her as a playable character after you beat the main story, and she basically plays pretty decently. She has a spikeless ability where she can cling on walls and move up faster than Knuckles, and she has a double jump like Amy. And she also has a unique super form being this dragon here that kind of moves awkwardly. She can fly and only is really quite useful against bosses because you can cheese them pretty good. And that's really about it. But overall, I thought she was a fine character. But anyways, you gain access to Trip's Story, which is basically kind of like Knuckles' story in Sonic 3, but to the extreme again. Brand new level design per zones, and the zones are a little bit more harder. I quite honestly didn't find it to be too challenging. I thought they were pretty easy from beginning to end. Up until you go up against Fang, because holy f is this guy bullshit. Because he has insta-kill attacks. 2 of them in fact. One of them in his first phase and another in his second phase. I mean, is that enough, everyone? 2 insta-kill attacks. And then there's this one attack where there's no tell at all of when he's going to bang his hand down. And I lost to him a couple times just because I couldn't even tell when he was about to bang his fucking head. And if you fuck up even once, back at the beginning you go. Holy fuck this piece of shit. I raged on my first try against him, and even on my second time I was still raging my ass off. But that's not over yet. Oh no, we're not done yet. We have the final story where you go up against this purple ass dragon here, which quite honestly, the cutscene makes it look like he's coming out of Satan's asshole. Or maybe it's just me. And this fucking piece of shit purple ass dragon, I only beat him my second try. Yeah, quite honestly, I don't know what to say here. I was able to beat him pretty easily. I guess because I knew I had to conserve my rings, and I knew for the most part I had to play it safe. But even then, I was looking up YouTube videos to see how to beat this guy, because I didn't want to spend 2 hours on this motherfucker, because I already saw many others spend hours upon hours on beating this piece of shit, and I didn't want to be in that same position. So yeah, if I didn't watch YouTube videos or live streams, I'd probably be ranting like everyone else. But anyways, it's time for us to end it all. Overall, Sonic Superstars, I would say, is one of RSS's best games. But that's not saying much. If you know their pedigree, you know their pedigree. And even then, Sonic Superstars is what I would consider a B-tier game, I guess. But even then, I consider it a C-tier game. Because at the end of the day, you have these long, drawn-out bosses, and some of these gimmick levels don't really hit, and some of the Chaos Emeralds don't hit as well, and don't get me started on some of the spoiler stuff in this video. But hey, at the other end, you do have a good structure here with some pretty solid physics, some great characters to play as, some unique Chaos Emerald powers, and some pretty nice music here and there, even though some of the Sonic 4 music can go away. It definitely feels like a developer's first game with the Sonic franchise, and they want to experiment and see what would stick and what doesn't, and a lot of things don't stick. Is it a good structure like many people are saying? Yeah, I guess so. I wasn't really too offended about the game other than the spoiler stuff. And for the most part, I thought most of the levels were pretty fine. But is this $60 worth? Absolutely not. Don't get this game for $60. Definitely wait for a sale for $40, and seeing how Black Friday is around the corner, yeah, definitely for sure save your money. And if you'll excuse me, I gotta take care of the trash. Took care of that problem. Oh, what the hell? Hey, thank you for sticking to the end of this video. And if you liked this video, consider hitting that like button and let me know what you think about Sonic Superstars in the comments below. And if you want to see more videos, check out these videos here. I think you'll like them. See you guys on the next one. Take care.